Join me for the pledge.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So first up is public participation. Mr. Jim McNiff is here, I believe. Come on up. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's right.
Oh, thank you.
I have to read these in the next 5 minutes.
Sorry about that.
There's a test. Yeah, name's Jim McNiff. I live at 59 Villagewood Drive in Burlington. Looking at your agenda, you didn't have listed one thing I thought I'd like to get more information about is Shawshene. And that I've been reading a lot about, they've submitted a MSBA proposal, even though they haven't been successful, I think 3 times before. But from what I can gather, could run over $400 million if they were to have a school. And I just wanted to get a sense of where, is that in the works, or is that like put to the side for now because we don't have any more information?
We mentioned it at the last meeting. We don't really have any more information at this point. We know that they won't be asking for any money even for our portion of a feasibility study for this next year. They would be looking at the following year.
Yeah.
So they're just entering that and don't really have much more information than that. We have some questions, but we don't. I think that the superintendent will talk about it when they present their budget, which is you have to look on the thing. It's probably
Like April
late
10th,
April.
9th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
April 9th.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because, I read some of what he said in the news, and it was mentioned that he didn't understand the process, and after you fill all the paperwork, why they don't get selected because of the extent of their building. They're in a little bit tougher shape than our high school, from what it's described. So that was one question. The second one was really on one of your reports that'll be coming out, that you're going to talk about. I just wanted a question on the police department as to the original budget or proposal is $46.2 million, and a lot of time has passed since there's been meetings and publication. I was at a few of the meetings in the beginning, and I approached it trying to save money, but that didn't kind of work out. So I'm just looking to see if that budget has changed at all, or is it still 46.2? And
An update is on the agenda. I don't know
yeah,
if there's a quick answer.
that was the only
Wait
one I had
till
a
we get
question.
to the end.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, that was really all I had.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Next up, announcements. So I think everyone saw that Paul Sagarino has announced that he's leaving at the end of June, I believe.
Which year?
We're going to negotiate the year. I don't know. So I just publicly want to thank you for everything. Unbelievable service to this town and this committee, and it's very much appreciated.
Thank you all very much. You know how much I enjoyed working with you guys. It's the beginning of May, Frank, but like I say, plenty of time to talk about that. I'll be around for 3 more months, and I look forward to touching base with all of you. But thank you for the kind words.
Thank you. All right. So budget overview from Mr. Denizio and Mr. Sagarino.
We're going to try something new and share from here in the room rather than me doing it from my laptop to see if it's bigger for everybody. Doug and I played with it a little, and it was. So that looks a little bigger here. Frank, this is specifically for you because of the last
Thank
meeting.
you. I washed my glasses.
Okay, thank you. So this is the meeting where we used to call it the drop and go, where we would pass out the binders. And thank you to Sam, since he's here, for putting all the binders together, and for Sam and Rachel for getting everything up on the website, for those of you using the electronic version. But we just have a quick slides, kind of give a high-level overview, and then you'll be able to get into all the details and the nitty-gritty with all the department heads as you have your subcommittee meetings and eventually meetings with them. So for FY '26, the first thing we usually talk about is what are we doing with the head count? Are we adding any new FTEs or anything like that? As you can see from the slide, there's a net decrease for next year from 25 into 26 of a little bit more than a half a position. Decreased, what makes up that is 3 positions that will be going away through attrition. One that is a change in from a full-time to a part-time, and then some strategic adds, one at the Council on Aging for a 19-hour outreach worker. It's an area where we need some help for quite some time, and we'll put it off for a few years, and this is the year where we can't really put it off anymore. One is an initiative we've talked about again for a few years with the communications person, a town-wide communications person that would help all departments, that would basically be run through the town administrator's office. That's where it lands. And then the other is something else that we've talked about every year, especially in some committee meeting, as to the time has come. We've met with the superintendent and the HR folks, and we just don't have the bandwidth to continue to operate with a split HR director doing both the school and the town with the amount of employees and reporting and all that they have to do. It's amazing we made it this long. But we have an ask in ours for that piece of Joanne that was covered by the school to add into ours, and the school will have something similar on theirs. For each of the quick breakdown of the departments, you'll see it when you check out the scorecard, the cheat sheet scorecard online. There's 7 departments that were, last meeting we were here when we talked about the budget guidelines, and we measure all of the departments against the guideline, but also in total against the guidelines. This is just a list of a few of the departments. When you see the percent increase from the department year over year, you'll see 7 of them that are technically over the guideline. There's 4 there's no change in the FTE, but there are some other changes. Again, I'll let the department heads get into that. One that I will point out is a big changes in town meeting and reports. That's just with what has changed with town meeting already. This doesn't include anything that would be the clicker system or any new changes that would be adding electronic voting or anything like that. So this is to just right-size town meeting for what we've been spending the last few years on personnel to do AV, to do technology, and to have the interactive through the hybrid that exists already. Legal, you'll see IT and DPW, again, we'll get into those when we get to the departments. And then the bottom ones are, strictly from the added FTEs that we're requesting. For accommodated, same things we talked about last time I was here with the guidelines. The biggest drivers are the OPEB, where we're continuing on our plan that's been around for quite a bit of time. We're continuing to be able to build that increase into our budget year over year. The retirement system, again, was one that's been around for a long time and will continue to be around for a while until it's fully funded. Our regional school assessment, we recently got although the number isn't a huge an amount of increase, but percent-wise it is. It's almost 10%. I talked about at guidelines, I talked about one of the budget busters being our non-health insurance, the town's non-benefit insurance. And then there's still some open items, which at this time, there always is a couple that we're still trying to sharpen the pencil on. That is health insurance, debt service. We expect those both to be done before we even start having subcommittee meetings. They're just not totally finalized today. So these ones that aren't finalized, you'll see when you check out the scorecard that they're highlighted in yellow, just to indicate that they're not finalized yet. The non-member regional school assessment probably will never be finalized till we're at town meeting. That's always the very last one. So we'll, when we get to that one, we'll talk about what to do. And then special ed tuition and transportation is always, last one to go, other than the non-member regional school. The technology lease, may remember from January town meeting, we got the approval to do the 5 years, which we need town meeting approval to go beyond 3 years for the lease. They're still finalizing that number. We have the placeholder in there, which we think is going to be a good number. That used to be 400,000 per year for 5 years. Now we think it's more like 500,000. They'll finalize that, and everybody will have a chance to talk about that with the MIS folks or the IT folks when they come in front of you too. And then what's the bottom line is we're still in our target range that we talked about, between trying to keep the levy growth between 4.5 and 5.5. The town budget as submitted to you is just under 4.5. Probably should have changed the slide to take the credit at 4.49. School budget's not finalized yet, and it won't be for a little bit of time. And the accommodated, we're still, like I said, sharpening the pencil. We expect to be around that 7%. That was our target at the beginning. So that's sort of a high-level, quick rundown of what's in front of you, and we expect the subcommittee meetings will start in the next week or so, and we'll be here in 2 weeks with some of the departments to get the approvals started.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick one. What was the town insurance non-benefits line?
So that, it's in the 149, it's in the Department 149. That's basically our liability.
Property.
Insurance, property insurance.
Got it.
Auto.
So it's around like a 1.5-ish number this year. We're projecting it to be 1.7 next year. So percent-wise, it's a big number, but.
Anybody else?
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Steve.
Mine's administrative, so go ahead.
So there were some things we could talk about, but I think you might prefer to bring it all to subcommittee. An example would be, is there any thought in human resources, instead of 2 directors, another person that's senior that would be for schools, but still reporting into the current director? That would save us some money and work just as well. We don't need to go into it
Yeah.
now, because the subcommittee will, but that. I'm kind of looking for ways where we can achieve the goals, but do it for some less money.
Right. And I think we were just, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, we did have a pretty thorough discussion with Superintendent Conti and sort of hashed out a lot of this, but we can get into detail with the subcommittees, but like I say, it seemed as though they really needed their own full-time person there every day.
So that would
kind of
go
thing.
in the school department budget as a full-time ad there?
Well, they have half of it budgeted already,
Right,
so
it
plus,
would-
yeah,
the
plus a
double
half.
over there.
And we pick up a plus .4, I think, on our end, so.
Right. Oh, I see, yeah, okay. Okay. Well,
Steve?
time for the meetings.
Do you have the directions for getting the budgets for the electronic users?
Yep, I'll forward an email to everybody with the username and password.
Sure. For next year, can you do that ahead of time? I'm feeling kind of.
I think he did.
You did? I missed it.
Steve, I never would have said that. I would have just said, sorry about that, I'll get it.
No. Fair enough. If I missed it, it's my mistake. Perfect. Maybe that went into my spam folder.
Anyone else? I assume, again, probably for subcommittees, but I'm interested in, the governor is making some proposals. We talked about one for being able to spread out the debt on a new school building to 40 years. I think that's something Town Hall 1 can kick around and look at. Is it worth it or not? And then also, there's also something about ways to help towns deal with OPEB, and they're growing. I don't know if you know anything about that, or it hasn't passed anywhere, but if you know what they're referring to.
I really don't know what they're referring to, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of communities are far behind where we're at on that project, so it
Right.
could be to maybe help some of them get jump start, but we can take a deeper look at that. as always, in that piece of legislation, there's a lot of things that will help cities and towns, not just financially, but also, you know, the age-old question of double poles in town and being able to find the telecom companies for those. So if we could get, you know, if anybody wants to reach out to our delegation to ask them to support it, it would be appreciated. Some of these same proposals were in there last year, and it never made it, so.
Yeah, the double poles would be nice.
Very common complaints.
Stop being the focus of so many.
We've got ours, you know. You don't have one?
No, not yet. Frank?
A separate thing, Mr. Chairman, have you given any more thought to the idea of a water and sewer enterprise fund? That's one. I don't expect it to be a budget issue this year, but it would be nice if we could sort of get some perspective on where you might be going with that, if anywhere.
I think, Frank, it would probably be wise if we just get a little working group going with a couple of you folks on it that have an interest in the topic and just sort of work through it a little bit. We'll get, you know, Public Works working on providing the numbers, and we can just sit and just sort of talk about the concept a little bit.
I think it's yeah. Go ahead.
Just, Roger mentioned this last time, we've sent a spreadsheet to DPW to get a bunch of data, so that we can figure out what the actual costs are, where revenue's coming from, what's the split between residential, commercial. So that'll at least give us all the numbers, so we can.
Yeah, that's a great
We
start.
can decide what we want to do with them, but.
So are they working on that?
They said they were.
But I think Paul's right, having a little working group
Yeah.
of people to figure out what the issues are.
Yeah, it would be nice to come into it with some raw data of current
Yeah.
puts and takes. That would be very, very helpful, I would think.
Yeah, it's as much of a philosophical discussion as it is a numbers discussion. So I think once we have the numbers, you know, that part of it's pretty easy. It's just a question of, you know, where do you want to go with it?
Right.
Okay.
Anything else for these guys? Okay. So moving down the agenda, updates from members that represent the committee on other committees. Police station? Who's our police station?
Mike,
Mike.
I keep looking at you. I keep looking at you. I'm sorry.
I have spoken up. Probably John has the more,
Yeah.
there hasn't been
You almost got it.
there hasn't been a meeting recently, but work is continuing, so.
Yep, so we have received the bids and got finalizing getting a contractor on board for the temp space. So we'll be having meetings over the next couple of weeks. I think our next building committee meeting right now is tentatively planned for March 6th, and then pretty regularly after that, you know. So now we have some detail for the new building. We're going to be starting work on the temp space, so we'll, you know, be able to give more regular updates and have regular meetings.
Do we have bids in? Do we have final bids for the project?
Only on the temp.
Oh.
Space.
Nothing on the project itself?
No, design, it won't be finished. That won't even hit the street till the summer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So at our next meeting, we'll be able to review some site plan stuff. We'll be able to review, you know, floor plans and what the facade may look like, some different options for what the facade that faces down Center Street might look like.
Anything else about the police? So the high school, I'll give a quick update. They had a community forum last week. I know some members here were at that. At this point, there are 5 options that have been presented and are being looked at. The goal is to narrow that down, hopefully by sometime at the end of April, to one preferred option. There are new cost estimates expected anytime now for the 5 that are out. And so that'll be helpful to see a little more focused cost estimate for each of those choices. 3 of the choices are brand-new builds completely, 1 in the student parking lot and 2 on the football field, which creates the problem of where do you move the football field. And then 2 are addition renovation projects, which are new facilities for all academic services, classrooms, offices, cafeteria, everything would be new. You would still utilize the gym space, and in one of the two, you'd utilize the current auditorium after it was renovated and made accessible. The other removes the auditorium and builds a similar size auditorium on the other side of the facility. But addition renovations are two options, and then the option for completely renovating the building seems at this point to be one of, if not the most expensive, because of the challenges of the center of that building and making it accessible. So while that seems like it might have been the cheapest option, it's not proving to be because of all of the work that would have to go into it. Yeah.
Thank you. I should ask this at the forum, but it seems like one of the ad renos is keeping the current auditorium, but I thought that wasn't like compliant or ADA compliant, and was very hard to change. So I didn't understand how they're keeping that.
No, by gutting it and redoing the.
Okay, so it's a do-over.
It's a do-over, keep the shell.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
let's keep the shell and redo the entire inside.
Just to clarify, so on the things that you identified, the three new, quote, new thing,
Right.
new buildings, I believe there's still money in that whole plan to renovate the gym and the cafeteria and
Right.
almost the middle section. So it's not only new, it is,
It is a little bit of a misnomer, really, because they're really, in some sense, they're all addition renovations, or they're all renovations. It's either new and renovation or addition and renovation, just in that the additions would connect to the existing gymnasium space. In the new builds, you add a gym, a small gym that would be a basketball court size, but not big enough for sports and events, big enough for PE and those kinds of activities. And you add a black box theater, a small theater. In those plans, you do not renovate the auditorium, you lose it. And so whatever they end up building, I believe the current plans now, it is a smaller facility, but we've asked them to increase that size to recreate what we have now as far as size, which I think is 800 seats.
I guess for me, the important point is that there are no functions that are currently on property that are being dispensed with. You know,
Right.
BCAT
BCAT,
administration.
the Early Childhood Center, the Science Center, the school administration are all being taken care of, and they will all be housed in the section of the current building. The administration, same section. The Early Childhood Center would go into what is now the cafeteria system. BCAT would be where they are, I believe. So we're still providing for all of those services, and it would be in a renovated building with new heating and HVAC. So the financial working group for that building committee is putting together some information to, including the tax impact for the various prices, and I sent that around this afternoon, but they're still working off of $3.34 per million borrowed as an impact on the average taxpayer. That's basically what we used for Fox Hill. It may be a little high, but it's, safely conservative for this point in the process.
That's per million
Borrowed,
borrowed.
Yeah.
That's principal and interest at 5%, 25 years.
yeah,
And that's the calculation of that.
yeah. So 300 million is $1,000 a year.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what the basis of the
I'm sorry,
334
yeah.
was. So it's principal and interest, 5%, 25.
Right. And if you look at, though it hasn't passed, it's, I think it's expected to, the being able to finance school building projects over 40 years,
You want to talk about that?
it's an interesting, makes the cost go way up over the time.
Oh, yeah, significantly.
Yeah,
Your great-grandchildren will be paying for that.
Total cost is way up.
The
right.
student loan model.
Yeah, it does go up to, yeah, it does. So, but it's certainly a question that people have been asking, the community is asked, and it's being floated out there as a way to minimize them. And, in one sense, the point was made, you're spreading out to more taxpayers over time that are going to use the building. Use the building as a 50-year or 60-year life. The negative side is you'll be replacing roofs and doing some major renovations while you're still paying for the building, so. But anyway, it's a question, and it's going to come around, and so it's worth thinking about and having.
What's the debt service number? Just curious. I don't know if you sent that as part of your package, but what's the 334 would go to what on a 40-year per million borrowed?
What, I'm sorry, what's the?
What's the debt service number per million borrowed on a
Okay.
40-year amortization?
It stays the same, it's just
Yeah.
it'll be over a much longer period of time.
No, 334.
Oh, no, it would-
Amortization. Now you're stretching it to 40, it's gonna be like 2 and change. So I'm just curious what the.
I don't have it at that level. I have it at, annualized. It's 21.2 million for a 25-year, and it's 17.5 million for a 40-year.
So about 15-20% less, it sounds like.
Does anybody do, non-linear, non-constant principal and interest?
You can do whatever you want. Is a quick answer. I mean, the
You have
way.
to find a bondholder who's willing to take
Well,
it.
I mean, it turns out, I didn't realize this until I finally drilled down on it, but when we issue a 25-year bond, we don't actually issue a 25-year bond. We issue a 1-year bond, a 2-year bond, a 3-year bond, and so on, so that one comes due each year. And you can split those up however you want. We typically sort of do it like a mortgage so that they're equal, but they don't have to be. I think we could specify whatever we want to the people that, package the bonds for us, and they'll be able to make it however we want if we care about that. Some of them are non-linear that we have, actually, not by a lot, but.
I'm just conjecturing whether you can save money by shaping the payment plan
Yeah, it's all.
against your expected tax increases.
Yeah, it's all a matter of where you want to pay it, right? We can make our grandchildren pay for it.
Ed?
Not a comforting thought.
Yeah.
Since it was asked, it's a whole 18% savings, so the 334 goes to 274, and that's just comparing a 25-year payment to a 40. Everything's linear to first order, the particulars matter, but it's 60% longer payment period for 18% reduction in payments. Not super compelling.
Yeah.
But we currently do not have that is not an
It's not
option.
even
we currently have.
authorized, but
Right.
I just thought Doug might want to talk about it.
I love talking about it. I can tell you the total price goes from 532 million to 699 million.
What a deal.
Yeah, so you pay a lot more for the building for a little bit.
You might have a different interest rate, but you got 15 years.
Oh, well,
Right.
that's another.
What really matters is the refinancing that happens somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else about the high school? Any other questions? Anything? Fox Hill?
Fox Hill, the team is trundling along, doing estimates, refining the designs. There was a meeting of the sustainability group today, talked about solar panels is still one of the topics, but a lot of it had to do with that we're hitting the goals for energy efficiency and LEED certification, and there's a discussion about low-flow toilets and, other sustainability measures of saving water and things like that. There's, still a big question is about, do we own the solar panels or do we do a PPA? And I think, Edward had done some numbers that said it's kind of either way, it costs us about the same amount of money, but if it's a PPA, we don't have to put up any money out front. I learned today that at least the PPA company, if we want it to be, net zero, so all the electric usage is covered, we can make a contract with them to do that, and they will put the panels on the roof, they will build canopies and put panels on the canopies, all on their dime, and maintain the system for 20 years. So no upfront capital, but we don't get any of the benefit other than we get a very predictable lower electricity rate for the life of it. And if I kind of feel like, I personally would rather own them, but I think since we're in a capital crunch, that's probably not, how do you choose? Do you pay for these solar panels to own them, or do we do something else? And I suspect when it came down to it, we might decide we've got something else we want to spend $3.8 million on.
Sure.
So,
I think it warrants a discussion with the administration of what an additional $3.5 million in borrowing means to us. It looks like a drop in the bucket compared to all the rest of the debt, but probably in any given year, every bit matters.
Right.
yeah, and, it's long enough. Yes, the panels are good for 20 years. I don't know if I'd bond it for 25. I'd rather pay cash for it, but if you're paying, cash for it, then you're making a trade-off of some other short-term purchase.
Sure. Okay. Anybody? Anything? Athletic fields, we touch base.
Yeah, there's, on task. There was a meeting last night. Unfortunately, my flight from Florida was delayed, so I didn't get a chance to log on virtually, but I know they were kind of finalizing the design plans. I think they wanted to go shooting for, I believe, the March, April timeframe to get it out, or at least to break ground. But there's going to be an update. I'll get an update via email probably tomorrow on any of the topics that were discussed.
It's unfair to hold him to it in this public meeting, but I did speak with Jeremy Brooks just on the side and at the community forum last week and asked him how it was going, and he said it's his goal to return some money. So, he realizes that it was odd circumstances that they got the money in, so he's very serious about trying to get everything done and toe the line and be able to return a little bit and not spend everything that was approved, so hopeful.
Relative to the project itself, do we know for a fact if if they build what they want to build, that it would be varsity capable for track, field, and football?
My understanding was there's nothing.
That would mean lighting, bleachers.
No. There's nothing with that amount of bleachers that we approved bleachers 2 or 3 years ago for Brush Field, and they're still not there. It's a question I'm gonna ask it when the schools are here.
The reason I'm asking is.
But it's much smaller.
We could at least temporarily use that for varsity sports, which would be track, field, and, all of them. I mean,
The track, I believe the track, I think when we talked about it, I think the track is
we
varsity.
keep calling it football, but I mean, there's soccer, there's
Yeah.
lacrosse,
There's a scoreboard, so that, you have to have a scoreboard, there is. There's not enough seating, and there won't be.
Bring a blanket. There's a slope.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know what it would be capable of, so that we would know if it's even a reasonable alternative for which sports. The high school.
Yeah. For a short term, it may be. I think for a long term, which was talked about by the building committee, I think the parking was so limited that it was kind of ruled out as a good option for the long-term varsity field.
Isn't there a lot of parking behind the school?
No.
There's some, but
There's
it's not a
some,
lot.
but there's not a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? So next meeting, the minutes, I got a couple of minor changes that I made. Anybody have anything on the minutes? Give a motion on the minutes of January 22nd.
Move to approve minutes of January 22nd.
Second.
All those in favor? We don't have anybody. Opposed? Abstain? All right.
I'll trust you guys. I didn't see the minutes.
Well, you're voting that you had a chance, just.
Everybody get a feel.
Next meeting is 2 weeks, March the 5th. We'll be doing Veterans Affairs, Disability Access, Youth and Family Services, Human Resources, the Assessors, Council on Aging, Local Transportation, Conservation, Town Accountant, and Legislative Committees. There has been a change, I think the subcommittees are aware, but there was a change. Brendan Egan could not be here for the week he was scheduled, I think, and so he has to move up a week, so we did a little flip-flop. But that's been changed on the schedule under our login for Ways and Means. Anything else? All right, motion to
So moved.
Second?
adjourn?
Record. Rowan, switch.
Flip the switch.